Today I bring you another thriller and horror slasher film from the West. I Know What You Did Last Summer. This film was released in 1997, and although it has been many years since then, the level of horror and the twists in the story are still quite unexpected. Alright, let's get straight to the story. On the night of July 4th during the Croker Festival, the seaside town was filled with excitement. In that graduation season brimming with restless youth and parting emotions, every breath of air was full of the teenagers' longing and anticipation for the future. As the saying goes, while some rejoice, others grieve, and on the nearby coast, a man sat alone on the edge of a cliff, staring at the time on his pocket watch, as if waiting for something to arrive. Suddenly fireworks lit up the town, marking the beginning of the beauty pageant. At the event, contestant number 3, Helen, successfully advanced and was crowned Croker Queen for the night, receiving a dazzling crown. Seeing Helen's victory, the wealthy and excitable Barry cheered nonstop for his girlfriend from the balcony. At the same time, Helen's best friend Julie and her boyfriend Ray also arrived at the scene. After the pageant, Julie and Helen headed to an outdoor party. To celebrate Helen winning the title of Croker Queen, Julie suggested they have a drink together. At this moment, Helen's sister Elsa saw them at the party. Elsa was a fashion designer who owned a clothing store in town. She was about to head home and asked her sister if she wanted to join. Helen said she had plans for the night and would return later. Just as Helen sent her sister away, Julie was being bothered by an older student from their school. The man was Max, who had secretly liked Julie for years and was planning to confess his feelings that night. Julie quickly stopped him, explained that she already had a boyfriend, and politely turned him down. But Max refused to give up and kept bothering Julie. Suddenly, Barry showed up. Arrogant and cocky, he didn't spare Max any dignity and quickly started arguing with him. Seeing that they were about to fight, Ray finally stepped in to stop them. Barry gave face to Julie and Helen, and in order to avoid trouble, he left the scene with his girlfriend. Before leaving, Julie apologized to Max. Afterward, the group headed to the beach and began telling a story about a terrifying killer. The two men originally wanted to scare the girls, but the story of the killer had no effect on them at all. Not long after, the four split into 2 pairs, each spending romantic time with their partner near the beach. But happy times are always short, and soon the girls said it was time to go home. As they were about to leave, Helen took the keys from Barry because he had been drinking and handed them to Ray. Barry warned Ray to be careful, reminding him that this was a brand new car his parents had just bought him, and he could not afford to have anything happen to it. On the way back, the drunken Barry complained that the music in the car wasn't exciting enough and decided to change the track. But just as he switched the music, a horrifying incident suddenly occurred. Fortunately, Ray reacted in time, or else both the car and all of them would have gone off the cliff. Yet they felt as though they had hit something, and the startled Ray guessed it might have been a dog, telling them not to panic. Barry, however, furiously yelled at Ray, saying it was his new car and his father would scold him to death if anything happened to it. As they prepared to leave, Julie noticed a shoe lying nearby. That meant they may have actually hit a person. Terrified, they began to search the area for traces, while Barry only cared about his car. Sure enough, not far away they found someone lying on the ground. To figure out whether the person was alive or dead, Barry told Ray to check, reminding him that it was his accident. Ray had no choice but to reluctantly step forward. Looking at the injured person, Ray said his face was unrecognizable and he was probably dead. Hearing this, Julie wanted to call the police and an ambulance, but Barry stopped her. He said the man was already dead, and if the police came, they would surely hold them responsible. Ray also said that if they called the police, his life would be over. But Julie insisted this was an accident, pointing out that Ray had not been drinking. He was driving normally and not speeding. So if there was blame, it should be on the man for crossing the road. Ray replied that there was spilled alcohol in the car, and no one would believe his story. At this moment, Barry suggested throwing the body down the cliff, saying the sea below might wash it away, leaving no trace and destroying the evidence. Julie argued against it, saying it wasn't reliable, and insisted on calling the police, believing they would be cleared if they explained. As they quarreled, a sudden light shone from the bend in the road below. Seeing another car approaching, they panicked and quickly dragged the body outside the guardrail, letting Barry pretend to be drunk and vomiting by the side. Coincidentally, the one driving up in the pickup was Max, who secretly liked Julie. Seeing this, Julie hurried over to Max to stall him. Luckily, they had moved quickly, throwing the body outside the guardrail before Max arrived. Curious, Max asked what they were doing, and Julie explained that Barry had drunk too much, so they were resting here since he didn't want to throw up in his new car. Hearing this, Max did not suspect anything, and after a few words, he drove away. Once Max left, they dragged the body to the shore, planning to dump it into the sea. At this point, Julie said she wanted to check the man's wallet for identification because she wanted to know his name. Barry told her not to think about anything else and to hurry up and throw the body away before more trouble came. He then told Ray to do it, but Ray was too scared to move. Seeing them hesitate, Helen stepped forward to do it herself. No one expected that the moment Helen touched the body, the man suddenly moved and grabbed her crown. To make sure no evidence was left behind, Barry had no choice but to jump into the water, determined to retrieve his girlfriend's crown. Back on shore, Barry did not reveal what had just happened in the water. And after giving the crown back to his girlfriend, he told everyone they had to swear to keep tonight's events a secret, warning that if anyone leaked it, they would suffer a terrible fate. Ray and Helen followed his demand and swore an oath, but Julie felt reluctant, still regretting that she had not called the police. Barry grabbed Julie by the neck and said that if she did not swear, he would choke her right here. Under his threat, Julie had no choice but to make the oath. Time passed quickly, and soon it was a year later, with everyone going their separate ways, while Julie continued working hard to get into her dream college. Helen always had a dream of becoming a star, but after multiple failed auditions, she reluctantly started working at her sister's clothing store. The wealthy Barry continued to live off his parents at home. Only Ray, who came from a poor family, was forced to take up his father's job as a fisherman since he hadn't gotten into university. One day after school let out, Julie planned to visit her parents with her classmates. Not long after she returned home, her mother found her and handed her a letter, inside of which read, "I know what you did last summer." Julie was shocked after reading it, and she wanted to know the sender's address, but there was no information at all. That night, still thinking about the letter, Julie tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She felt it was far too strange, and decided to find Helen first thing in the morning. The next day, Julie went to Elsa's clothing store and found Helen still busy working. At the very first moment they met, Julie told her about the letter. They both felt it was unbelievable, because more than a year had passed, and there was no way anyone could have discovered them. Still confused, they went to Barry's house to tell him as well. But after hearing them out, Barry thought they were talking nonsense, saying that a piece of paper meant nothing. Julie still believed it was Barry's fault, and that if they had called the police back then, the man would not have died. Barry roared at Julie, saying he had done nothing wrong, because all the signs at that time showed that the man was already dead. At this moment, Julie revealed another detail, saying that from the news she had learned the man's name was David, and his body had been discovered half a month later when fishermen pulled it up in their nets. It was also around that time that she officially broke up with Ray. Now Barry placed suspicion on Max, because he believed Max was the only one who passed by that night, and he might have known the truth and used it to scare them. To get to the bottom of it, Barry went to where Max worked. Finding Max, Barry's temper exploded, and without hesitation he overpowered him, warning him not to play tricks again or he would kill him with a hook. Completely confused, Max had no idea what was going on. After giving Max a warning, they went to Ray's fishing boat. Since Barry and Helen had other things to do, they simply greeted him and left. After their breakup, Julie and Ray felt somewhat awkward seeing each other, but Julie still told him about the note. Thinking that Julie wanted to blame him, Ray started making excuses. Hearing this, Julie said she had never even thought that way, and then she left. Meanwhile, as Max was working, he suddenly heard strange noises, but when he looked around, there was nothing. As he turned back to his work, something terrifying happened. Completely off guard, Max never even knew who attacked him, and he died on the spot in the warehouse. At that time, Barry had just finished exercising at the gym and was showering when he suddenly heard strange noises nearby. Seeing a shadow flash by, he hurried out. On his locker, Barry found a photo, and eerily, it also said, "I know what you did last summer." Puzzled, he thought it was another prank, and he searched around, but there was not a single person nearby. When he returned to his locker, he found it had been broken into without him noticing, and his shirt was gone. Furious, Barry rushed to the counter and asked the owner if anyone else was working out, but the owner told him he was the only one there that night. Just then, Barry heard a car start up. Thinking it was Max retaliating, Barry cursed as he chased after it. But before long, the car eerily stopped. Barry was knocked down, and a mysterious figure stepped out of the vehicle. Seeing that the figure was a masked man holding a hook, Barry was terrified, begging to be spared. Fortunately, the man did not kill him, as if he only wanted to frighten him. Soon after, Barry was sent to the nearby hospital. Julie and Ray arrived after hearing the news. They wanted to know who had attacked Barry, but Barry said the person was wearing a mask and a hat, and he had not seen the face at all. Julie felt this must be related to what had happened last year, and she believed they should tell the police, since perhaps they would not be held responsible. Ray also agreed with Julie, but Barry was convinced it was an attempted murder, and that if they told everything, they would all be implicated. As they argued, Helen suggested a plan, saying they should find out who the dead man was and whether his family was taking revenge, and if so, they could negotiate with them and ask what they wanted. After agreeing, Julie and Helen went to the records office to search for all the people named David in the city. Through Julie's persistent effort, they finally found some leads, though there were several people with that name, and one seemed to match the man they were looking for. The records showed that this David had a girlfriend, and they had been planning to get married. The strangest part was that 2 years earlier, on the very same day of the accident, David and his girlfriend had a car crash and fell into the sea. When the rescue team pulled them out, only the driver and David had survived. At that moment, Julie suddenly remembered that on the night they dumped the body, she thought she had seen the name Susie tattooed on David's arm. Through the records, they found that David and his sister lived in Maribel County. After getting the address, they quickly headed over to check out the situation. As they approached the house, Julie told Helen that if they saw David or his family, it would be best to stay calm for now and not mention last year's incident. Soon they arrived at the house, but it seemed like no one was inside, so they decided to look through the window to see what was happening. Suddenly, Melissa came over and asked what they were doing, saying that she was the owner of the house. They explained that their car had broken down and would not start, so they wanted to borrow the phone for help. With Melissa's agreement, Helen went to make the call. Julie tried to ask some questions, and she learned that Melissa did have a younger brother named David, and that he had died last year. David had a friend named Billy Blue who had come to visit her, and they seemed to be classmates from the class of '92. Julie wanted to ask more about David, but Melissa seemed to sense something strange in their behavior, so she did not dare to ask further and quickly left. With no more clues, Julie decided to take Helen home first. As Helen was getting out of the car, she said something that made Julie feel a chill down her spine.
His girlfriend was killed on that same road July 4th 1 year earlier. Maybe he blamed himself. Maybe he was sitting in the road waiting for us to hit him.
Yeah, if that'll help you sleep at night.
Julie did not answer Helen and drove away. Helen soon returned home, but what she did not know was that as she stepped inside, someone else also entered behind her. Her father, who was watching television inside, did not notice that someone had come in. Before Helen even entered the house, the man in black had already hidden inside the closet. The next morning, Helen woke up to find last year's crown placed on her head. Her hair had been mysteriously cut, and the most terrifying thing was that the mirror beside her had "soon" written on it. Terrified, she screamed uncontrollably. Helen immediately called Julie. Hearing the news, Julie drove quickly to Helen's house. But on her way, she heard creaking noises coming from the trunk. She pulled over to the side of the road to check what was going on. When she opened the trunk, she found Max's body inside, already reeking of decay. Seeing this, Julie was horrified. She quickly ran to Helen's house and told them what had just happened. Barry said it was impossible, claiming he had seen Max not long ago. They all went out to Julie's car, but when they opened the trunk, there was nothing inside. Barry said it might be a hallucination caused by Julie's stress, but Julie insisted she had really seen a body, and it was even wearing Barry's missing jacket. By now, they were completely furious, not understanding what this person wanted. Why not just kill them? Instead, they kept playing tricks, or scaring them. Barry broke down completely and went straight to Ray, beating him up, convinced that Ray was behind it all. As a wealthy young man, Barry believed Ray had approached them from the start only for their money. But Ray said he had done none of this, and that he had also received the same letter. After hearing this, everyone began to wonder who could be behind it, since every time it was only threats, never finishing them off, as if there was another purpose. Back inside, they decided to investigate Billy Blue, because now he was their biggest suspect. Helen said her sister had also graduated in '92, so maybe her yearbook might have Billy's photo or information. But after searching for a long time, they could not confirm whether the person in the photo was David's friend. After some discussion, they decided to go to Melissa's house and ask her to identify Billy from the photo. But Helen said she needed to attend the Croker Festival, so they had no choice but to split up, with Julie going to find Melissa while Barry planned to protect Helen at the event. Soon it was the next day. Since Helen was the reigning Croker Queen, she had to participate again until a new queen was crowned. Otherwise, she would remain the queen for another year. Before entering, Barry stayed close to Helen to ensure her safety. Suddenly, Helen spotted a suspicious man wearing a trench coat, and she quickly called Barry. Barry immediately ran after the man, but when he caught up, he found it was not the killer at all. Afterward, Helen noticed more and more suspicious figures in trench coats and hats around her, but she did not realize that the real killer was watching her every move from above. Soon, the pageant began, and Barry stood in the balcony as always to guard Helen. But in the middle of the event, Helen suddenly saw a figure sneaking up behind Barry. When Helen screamed loudly, the audience was confused. The police noticed something was wrong, approached Helen, and asked what had happened. She said someone upstairs had killed Barry. To verify her claim, the police went upstairs with Helen, but they found no clues, and the police comforted her, saying it might be an illusion caused by stress. Little did they know, right after they left, a large stain of blood seeped out from the wooden post. Meanwhile, Julie found Melissa, showed her the yearbook, and suggested that David's death might have had another story behind it. Melissa was puzzled, saying she knew her brother had taken his own life, and there was no need for further investigation. Helpless, Julie confessed about the accident when they had hit someone, but Melissa insisted it was impossible, firmly claiming her brother had ended his own life because she had his note, which she had hidden before to claim insurance. But now that the money was gone, she no longer cared if anyone saw it. Looking at the note, Julie said it did not look like a farewell at all, but more like a threat. Melissa still insisted that her brother had drowned himself, and told Julie not to say nonsense anymore. Julie said it really was them who had run into David with their car, and she had even seen Susie carved on David's arm. Melissa said it was impossible, that she had never seen her brother with any tattoo, and angrily told her to leave the house. Only then did Julie realize that if the person they hit was not David, then it must have been someone else. Meanwhile, the police decided to personally escort Helen home for her safety. On the way, Helen told the officer about the strange things that had happened, but the officer thought it was just a prank by her friends. As they chatted, the officer saw that the road ahead was blocked by obstacles, so he had no choice but to take a side road. Not far along, he saw a broken-down pickup truck blocking the way. He got out to check the situation. Seeing the killer attack the officer, Helen was terrified, and when she tried to open the car door, it would not budge. Helpless, she smashed the window glass with her high heel and crawled out. Once free, Helen ran toward the lights in the distance. Before long, she reached her sister's clothing store, frantically shouting for her sister to open the door. With the killer closing in, Elsa slowly made her way to the door. Halfway there, she forgot the front door key and had to turn back. At the critical moment, Elsa finally opened the glass door, and Helen rushed in, barely escaping. Helen said someone was chasing her and told her sister to lock the back door while she tried to call for help. But the line was busy every time she dialed. Meanwhile, Elsa went to shut the back glass door, unaware that a shadow was silently approaching from behind. When she turned, the killer was already showing the hook in his hand. Hearing Elsa's scream, Helen realized her sister might be in danger and went to check. But before she could go far, the lights inside the house went out. Helen grew more and more afraid, not knowing if the killer was already inside. Suddenly, there was a noise behind her. Breaking free, she ran toward the exit, but the door was already locked. At that moment, she saw her sister's body. Seeing the killer coming her way, she scrambled onto the freight elevator to get to the second floor. The killer followed closely. Helen noticed a window upstairs. She opened it and jumped down. Luckily, she landed on cardboard and debris, escaping unharmed. Meanwhile, Julie was back in the records office, and through the computer, she uncovered a huge secret. Immediately, she rushed to the event venue, but by then, everyone had already left. She felt her friends might be in trouble, so she searched for Helen. Helen, having escaped, saw the Croker Festival parade moving through town. Seeing hope, she ran toward it, but the killer suddenly appeared from the side. Helen was ultimately killed by the killer with a hook in the alley. Unable to find them, Julie went to where Ray worked, asking if he had seen Barry or Helen. Julie revealed the truth she had discovered, saying that the man was not David, but Susie's father, Benjamin. Benjamin was also a fisherman, and the body found by the police was David, which meant Benjamin might have killed David and then been hit by them. Ray told her to get on the boat and talk. Julie was about to board when she saw the words, Billy Blue, written on the boat. She suddenly realized Ray was the Billy Blue Melissa had mentioned, only using another name, and that he had also visited Melissa's house. Fearing Ray might have been behind everything, she tried to escape, but she stumbled and fell. An old fisherman pulled Julie up and even struck Ray down. Julie begged him to call the police, but Ray regained consciousness. The old man told Julie to hide on his boat while he handled Ray. On the boat, Julie was shocked to find a raincoat and hat in the corner, along with many photos of her and her friends on the wall. She was terrified and wanted to leave, but the door was locked. Then the old man from earlier came aboard. He said there was no escape, because this was not just about a hit and run. Julie realized the man in front of her was the fisherman Benjamin. Sensing danger, she tried to flee, but the boat had already left shore. Benjamin emerged with the familiar hook, declaring that she would never escape. Fortunately, Ray, who had been knocked out, saw Julie in danger and found a small boat to try and rescue her. As Benjamin came forward with the hook, Julie hid in the lower cabin and held the hatch shut. Hearing someone climbing aboard, Benjamin turned his focus to Ray, intending to take him out first. Distracted, Ray was struck down by Benjamin and fell overboard, but luckily, Ray landed on a fishing net, so he was not fatally hurt. With Ray out of the way, Benjamin turned back to finish Julie. Terrified, Julie shut the hatch and hid. Benjamin, familiar with the boat, tried to enter through the main cabin door. Luckily, Julie had already locked it. She tried to climb back and open the hatch, but heavy cargo had blocked it. As Benjamin forced the door, she found an escape hatch and crawled into the ice room. Meanwhile, Ray managed to climb aboard using the fishing nets. Julie, hiding in the freezer, tried to block the door with wooden boards, but when she pulled them back, she found the frozen bodies of Helen and Barry. She screamed in horror. Hearing the sound, Benjamin discovered her hiding place. Ray used the rigging to strike Benjamin, freeing Julie from the freezer. Just as Ray rescued Julie and tried to leave, Benjamin woke up and used his hook to knock down Ray. He then turned to kill Julie, but the hook snagged a rope, and Ray quickly released the mechanism, hoisting Benjamin into the air. Benjamin was flung into the sea and lost one of his hands. Their ordeal was finally over. After this terrifying night, Ray and Julie reconciled and vowed never to leave each other. Soon the police arrived, and they told them about Benjamin. But after searching for a long time, the police never found his body, only his severed hand. The police assumed the sea had carried his body away, leaving the case unresolved. Another year passed, with Julie still at college and Ray still working as a fisherman. Because of the distance, they usually communicated by phone. While they were talking excitedly, a classmate told Julie, who was about to take a shower, that there was a letter for her placed on the bench outside. After the call, Julie picked up the letter and froze. Gathering her courage, she opened it, and inside was simply a party invitation from her friends, which calmed her. As she walked into the shower, she noticed the words, "I still know," written in the steam on the shower door. Once again, she felt fear, standing frozen in place. That concludes the story of the first film, and the sequel will continue next time. If you have any thoughts about this film, feel free to share them in the comments below. See you next time.